Underworld series gave us an adventurous gothic story full of angst, revolution, action, and romance. But it also helped us explore the most outrageous what-if that I think every fan of vampires and werewolves has always wondered about: hybrids. What happens when we mix werewolves and vampires together? How powerful is the hybrid? Well, we at Marvelous Videos are going to break down the hybrid anatomy for you and look into each and every power that they have, which makes them a formidable foe or an amazing ally to have. So get cozy and let's get down to the breakdown. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who are the hybrid? How are they made? Well, we've already given you a hint about what hybrids are and how they are made. You take a werewolf, you mix it up with a vampire, and in a very pineapple, apple, pen fashion, you get a hybrid. While on the surface, that looks extremely simple, things get a bit complicated when you dig deeper. You cannot make a hybrid just by taking any werewolf or any vampire. So, what do you need? Firstly, you need to find someone from the fabled Corvinus bloodline, carrying the Corvinus gene. What is the Corvinus bloodline gene, you ask? Excellent question. Let me explain. A long time ago, there was a man named Alexander Corvinus. He lived in a small village that was ravaged by a plague. While most of the villagers died, this Hungarian nobleman survived because he had a unique gene in his body that, when activated, made him immortal. This man is the true immortal, the original immortal. After that, Alexander Corvinus had 3 sons, a pair of twins and a younger child. We know the names of the twins, Marcus and William, while the third brother's name is lost in history. William and Marcus had the Corvinus gene in active form, making them immortal from the get-go. The other brother, however, did not. Now, because they have immortality in their bags, you could say that these 2 brothers were a bit reckless. They went on a late-night ride in the mountain ranges. I mean, I get the whole teen spirit, but come on, would it hurt a bit to be a bit more responsible? But then again, if they were responsible, we wouldn't get this roller coaster ride of a story, so it makes sense. So they went on a night ride, and Marcus was attacked by a rabid wolf. His horse panicked, and Marcus was so stunned that he couldn't fight back properly. To save him, William threw himself between his brother and the wolf, becoming the first true werewolf. A few years later, Marcus was bitten by a rabid bat, and thus the first true vampire was born. The experience of becoming a rabid werewolf severely affected William's psyche, driving him to an uncontrollable rampage through nearby villages, where he bit random people, turning them into werewolves. Unable to curb William's rampage on his own, Marcus sought the help of Victor, another Hungarian warlord. After a great deal of espionage and political treachery, Victor managed to seize power over the vampire coven. He locked William away in a dungeon and ensured that Marcus never had the means to save his dear brother. Victor also enslaved the werewolves, capturing villagers and turning them into werewolves whenever their numbers dwindled. While in captivity, a werewolf child was born, who, unlike others, could shift between his werewolf and human forms. This child was Lucian, and those who could shift between these forms at will were termed lycans. Eventually, Lucian managed to break free from Victor's grasp after Victor killed Lucian's lover, Sonia, who also happened to be Victor's daughter. In response, Lucian planned an uprising. As part of this uprising, Lucian began searching for the descendants of the third Corvinus brother, hoping to turn one into a hybrid to test a theory proposed by Singe, his resident scientist. I'm sure you're wondering why they needed this so-called descendant. After all, every lycan and vampire technically carries the Corvinus strain because they were bitten and turned, right? Well, you're not wrong. However, as Singe suggested, using a descendant as a test subject would be better because the original Corvinus gene, untainted by animal DNA, would provide a clearer understanding of how hybrid physiology changes and how certain weaknesses might be eliminated. In the entire series, we see a total of 3 vampire-lycan hybrids: Marcus Corvinus, Michael Corvinus, Marvin, and E. We already know who Marcus is, so let me tell you about Michael and E. Michael is the descendant of the third Corvinus brother, whom Singe and Lucian managed to track down, and Eve is the daughter of Selene, our vampire protagonist, and Michael. While Michael turning into a hybrid was somewhat accidental, it happened out of sheer desperation. Michael was bitten by Lucian when the latter was trying to obtain his blood for testing. As a result, Michael became infected with the lichen virus and began transforming into a lichen. During his transformation, he was kidnapped by Lucian's agents, prompting Selene to show up to save him. Craven, a member of the Vampire Coven who had been pursuing Selene for a long time, saw Michael and Selene share a passionate kiss and became jealous. In a fit of envy, he shot Michael with silver nitrate bullets, which were deadly because Michael's physiology at the time was that of a lichen. As Selene cradled Michael's dying body, a fatally wounded Lucian urged her to bite him, knowing from his tests that Michael would definitely turn into a hybrid. So Selene bit him, and Michael eventually transformed into the first ever hybrid. How many hybrids are there in the Underworld franchise? How was their physiology changed? Now, all three of these hybrids, despite having the basic recipe of vampire and lichen genes mixing, do not fall into the same category. When we look at the hybrids, there are three ways we can divide them. We have lichen-dominant hybrid, vampire-dominant hybrid, and neutral hybrid. The lichen-dominant hybrid is, as the name suggests, someone whose lichen side is far more dominant. Michael falls under this category. When he transforms, his entire body takes on a dark bluish tinge, and his eyes turn completely black. As the transformation progresses, his rib cage extends, and his body grows, but not in the way a usual lichen does during a change. He has no fur on his body, but he still retains the animalistic traits of a lichen, such as claws and sharp teeth. As this hybrid, Michael is completely immune to sunlight and silver, although he still needs to drink blood for sustenance. The true limits of his capabilities are unknown. Marcus, on the other hand, is a vampire-dominant hybrid. Since he was a vampire first and then became a hybrid after being revived with Singe's blood, he retains some bat-like features. He shares the same musculature, claws, and eyes as lichen-dominant hybrids, but also has bat-like ears and a nose, which completely changes his visage. Additionally, Marcus has wings with retractable talons. Like Michael, he also needs to drink blood for sustenance. One key thing to remember about this type of hybrid is that we don't know if any random vampire, when turned into a hybrid, would exhibit the same capabilities. Marcus was the first ever vampire, so he may possess more abilities than others. As we have yet to see another vampire-dominant hybrid, we cannot be sure. Lastly, we have neutral hybrids. These hybrids are born naturally from a lichen and vampire union. Eve, who we see on screen, is an example of a neutral hybrid. She looks completely normal on the surface, but when she transforms, she gets that bluish skin, dark eyes, claws, and the whole shebang. She has an animalistic rage, though not as intense as her father's. Like the others, she also needs to drink blood to sustain herself. Fun fact, she is not the only neutral hybrid in the series. Lucian and Sonia were expecting a child, and their child would have been a neutral hybrid. However, as Sonia was killed by her father, Victor, we never got to see this particular hybrid. Now that we know all about the hybrids and how they were made, let's dive into their anatomy. Can hybrid physiology defend against physical destruction? One of the first things you'll notice about all of these hybrids, despite their dominant features, is their superhuman endurance. Michael, who is a human before becoming a hybrid, exhibits this endurance in both his human and hybrid forms. He can be shot multiple times and simply walk it off. Even when he faced Marcus and William, both elders in their own lineages, Michael managed to stand up against them despite their immense strength. William, for example, literally broke a stone with his bare hands, so you can imagine how powerful those hits were. Marcus, who was already a vampire, had superhuman endurance endurance as a vampire to begin with, but after becoming a hybrid, he could easily survive being crushed by a truck and even an impromptu amputation from helicopter blades. Gunshots or having his skull pierced with his own talon didn't faze him. However, in the end, he was defeated when Selene ripped his body apart by throwing him into the rotating helicopter blades. Now, both of these hybrids are quite old. Marcus is an elder who has been alive for a very long time, and Michael is an able-bodied adult who was transformed into a hybrid. But Eve, on the other hand, was just a child. We see her in action during her pre-adolescence, and even then, she is extremely resilient. She literally walked off blunt force trauma from being hit by a car and an evolved lichen. Even when she was severely bitten by a lichen, she managed to shrug it off without much discomfort, which hints at just how strong she will become as she grows older and her body develops further. Do hybrids possess limitless strength, or does it evolve? Obviously, since we spoke about their endurance, we have to speak about their strength. Vampires and lichens are both definitely strong, as they are supernatural beings. Both of them are able to do things that you and I cannot even imagine doing, but when we mix them together, the result is spectacular. Take our lichen-dominant hybrid Michael. Once he becomes a hybrid, he became one of the strongest beings in the entire series. Although he was at a significant disadvantage due to his lack of combat training, after all, he was a medical intern studying to be a surgeon before getting entangled in this mess, he compensated with his brute strength. Of all the opponents he faced, Victor was the only one Michael couldn't kill due to Victor's superior combat training. Everyone else he went up against met a quick demise because of Michael's strength. In fact, Michael was able to defeat William, the first ever werewolf, simply because his brute strength overpowered the Elder by a wide margin. Well, it's true that William had been in captivity for a long time, which might have weakened him. We saw him plow through several trained soldiers with ease. Even when Michael faced off against Marcus, he was able to hold his own against the Elder, despite Marcus's vast power as the eldest vampire. Even when Michael isn't in his hybrid form, he displays remarkable strength, such as stopping a truck with sheer force and breaking steel chains, feats that are far beyond normal human capability. Moving on to the eldest vampire to ever exist, Marcus. As the first of his kind, Marcus was stronger than any vampire to ever exist, including Victor and Amelia. The only reason Victor gained the upper hand was due to his political cunning and treachery. So you can imagine the danger Marcus posed when he awoke, especially since he woke up as a hybrid. As a hybrid, he received a significant power boost, enabling him to perform incredible feats like pulling a helicopter down from midair and overpowering other hybrids like Michael. He even lifted a stone wall designed to contain William, which demonstrates just how strong he became. Lastly, we have the youngest of the hybrids, Eve. Even though she is a child, her hybrid powers are in full swing when we meet her. She may not be combat trained, but her raw strength is enough to pulverize and rip apart opponents twice her size. Like most lichens, her strength seems to be linked to her emotions, especially intense ones like rage and fear. Her feats, such as ripping the head off a lichen while injured and tearing out the throat of an enhanced lichen, are awe-inspiring. Her sheer brutality is definitely something to behold. Do they have healing abilities? When Marcus gives chase, going after Michael and Selene, our protagonists do everything they can to shake off the Elder. However, no matter what they do, Marcus keeps coming after them, thanks to his superb healing ability. As a direct descendant of the true Immortal, Marcus's healing factor works far better than any of the vampires we've seen so far. Especially after becoming a hybrid, there was no stopping him, although his healing factor doesn't work when his body is ripped to shreds, which is great for us, but terrible news for him. Who would have thought that the great immortal vampire would meet his end by getting chopped up by helicopter blades? As for Michael, he definitely has a healing factor at play. After all, the man returned not once, but twice after being impaled through the chest with just a few drops of blood to revive him. However, if there's no blood available, his body seems to enter a suspended animation state, similar to the vampire elders, preserving his brain long enough for his body to fully heal. This is probably why Selene initially thinks Michael is dead after Marcus attacks them at Alexander's place, but at least his healing factor eventually kicked in, even if it took a few hours. Without it, I doubt Celine would have been able to stop both Marcus and William by herself. The real wonder, though, is Eve. As a natural hybrid, Eve's healing factor seems to be even more powerful than her father's. Even though she hadn't consumed blood while she was captive, the moment she got her first drop, her wounds healed within seconds, a record time. Since then, her healing factor has seemed to kick in full force, with all her wounds healing almost immediately. Is a new level of sensory perception emerging in hybrids? As it turns out, being a hybrid gives you a few perks that no one else has. When it comes to Marcus, he always shared a strong bond with his brother William. On top of his already enhanced senses, he was able to sense William's proximity when he was close enough. Similarly, when it comes to Eve and Michael, this father-daughter duo is able to sense whatever the other person is seeing. It is a psychic synchronization that they have. While Michael seems to only sense his daughter, Eve is able to sense an incoming Lycan attack way before anyone else does. Now, it could be that her senses are far greater than anticipated, which is a huge feat because Celine is not weak in any regard. Or it could be that, because of her Lycan heritage, Eve has a psychic connection with Lycans in general and is able to sense them whenever they are close enough. Do they have invisible claws? All three hybrids have another secret weapon at their disposal that they use to deliver severe damage: their claws. Claws are inherently a Lycan trait, which is why both Michael and Eve can access them even when they're not in their hybrid form. As for Marcus, who is a vampire-dominant hybrid, when he transforms into his hybrid form, he gains razor-sharp black claws. He primarily uses these claws to slash and tear through his opponents, slicing and dicing his way through them. Are they faster than Lycans and vampires? Due to their hybrid nature, all three possess superhuman speed. However, if we were to compare, I would say Eve is the fastest, followed closely by Marcus and then Michael. As a neutral hybrid, Eve gets the best of both worlds, without either side taking precedence. This allows her to literally disappear from people's sight in seconds without leaving a trace. She essentially pulls a Houdini on everyone, including her mother, at various points in the movie. Marcus, as the eldest vampire ever, obviously possesses a speed far greater than anyone could imagine. When he became a hybrid, his speed increases significantly, giving him the upper hand in numerous fights, whether against Celine, his own father, or Michael. Lastly, there's Michael. There's no denying that Michael has superhuman speed. He can cover several meters in mere seconds. However, I feel that because he hasn't honed his powers as much as Marcus has, he falls slightly short, which sometimes leads him to getting caught or beaten. That said, he definitely has untapped potential, and with Marcus gone, he'll have ample time to push himself and improve. Can they fly? It would have been really cool if flight were a power every hybrid got as a free bonus, but alas, that's not the case. The only hybrid who can fly is Marcus. As a vampire-dominant hybrid, he gains the ability to deploy wings from his back when he shifts into his hybrid form. These wings are reminiscent of bat wings, with extremely sharp tips that Michael often uses against his opponents. How can Marcus read anyone's memory? Being an elder of the entire vampire coven comes with a few perks, one of which is blood sorting. This ability allows the elder to drink blood and instantly gain access to the memories and knowledge it carries. For example, when Marcus drinks Craven's blood, he not only learns all the details of Victor's death, but also quickly acquires the knowledge of how to use advanced technology. Similarly, after drinking Celine's blood, Marcus uncovers the location of William's dungeon, even though the details were foggy and distant for Celine herself. Why is Eve immune to UV light and silver? While Marcus seems to avoid sunlight, one might assume that Eve or Michael would share the same fate, but that's not the case. As a Lycan-dominant hybrid, Michael can walk in sunlight with ease. His daughter Eve, the neutral hybrid, also has immunity to sunlight. Now, you might wonder if this means she will fall victim to silver like her father does. The answer is no. Eve is immune to silver nitrate and silver in general. As the perfect hybrid with the right balance, she is unaffected by the weaknesses of both species, making her an unstoppable force. This definitely raises the question, can Eve be killed in any way? To answer that, we need to ask, does immortality work differently for hybrids? The Corvinus strain is supposed to make everyone immortal. However, as we've seen, that's not quite accurate. Marcus, despite being a direct descendant of Alexander, died when he was thrown into helicopter blades and chopped into pieces. Perhaps this was a fluke. Maybe the immortality ends at helicopter blades and isn't strong enough to withstand such extreme measures. But that's not entirely the case. Michael, as a hybrid, is supposed to be immune to everything, especially with his impressive healing ability. However, right after he escaped the antigen facility, it seemed like Michael was killed by the Lycan leader Marius, and he has not returned to life yet. So based on this, it's possible he's dead. On the other hand, Eve is definitely not easy to kill. Thanks to her brute strength, raw rage, and powerful healing factor, taking her down would be a Herculean task, and it seems unlikely anyone would succeed anytime soon. So despite being a hybrid, immortality does indeed work differently for each of them. Marvelous verdict. The hybrids are a fascinating concept, and clearly the Lycan vampire hybrids are not the only ones we see in the Underworld universe. Even Selene becomes a hybrid after drinking blood from Alexander Corvinus, which raises the question, how many different combinations of powerful beings can there be? Kevin Grievous, most commonly known as Reyes from Underworld, did a phenomenal job creating the entire franchise with Len Wiseman and Danny McBride, and we definitely want more from the Underworld series. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.